Good morning. It's Monday. Today we're headed out early to see if I can get just a couple of, weightlifting challenges in at the senior center. And I'm gonna take you with me. Hold on. So, I've been feeling a little weak, a little lazy. So I figured, I might need to do some weights to offset, this feeling. And since I'm a senior, I'm gonna go to the senior center and, maybe do 15, maybe 10, who knows, 10, 15 minutes of weightlifting, right? They used to have a woman's gym, I guess you can call it a gym, where, they had figured out, key exercises that women were able to do, within a short amount of time to stay fit. Well, at least healthy. And I can't remember what that was called, but it was strictly for women. And somehow or another, that particular gym, kind of faded out because I don't hear about it anymore. But I used to like it because I didn't have to worry about, anything really. I mean, when you're in a room of women, typically when there's no men involved, women don't have to worry about other women. It's only in the presence of men that women begin to pretty much show their tails. So, the last time I was at the senior center, the majority of people that was there were women, elderly women. And I said, well, I earmarked it, put it in my database for future references. And I think the time has come, because there's just a few months before the weather is going to get very cold. Okay, when the weather gets really cold, I know I ain't going to want to go anywhere. And that's okay, right? Because I have a total gym at the house, and I have a treadmill at the house, and I have some light weights at the house. Although I do wish I had like a 35-pound barbell that I could work out with. I might go and see, if there's a way that I could, put the free weights that I have, in my yard and make a 35-pound barbell, because 35 pounds is probably, in my opinion, a good lightweight to work out with, right? 5 pounds is okay if you're just beginning. 10 pounds is good, if you're a strong beginner, but really, if you're really planning on, strengthening yourself, I think you gotta work out with at least 30 pounds. Okay? At least. 30 pounds and below, I think you'll be more or less burning energy, but not necessarily building muscle. You can build some endurance, but not necessarily muscle. So my mind is telling me, just try this and see how it works. If I feel energized, throughout the day because I worked out, then, I got my answer. It's a free membership for seniors. And it's something that, I've always put on the back burner. Like I said, been pretty lazy, been lackadaisical about, my health. But, now with the weight loss, I want to also be healthy. I don't want to just be a lightweight. That's not for me. So we're gonna go head out over here, and I'm gonna, give myself about 15 minutes to find certain items that, I want to work out on. Right? I was thinking I could take the approach of doing like the lower body, the upper body, but this is my first time there. And so I'm going to just, wing it today. And then after that, I'll decide, to target specific areas. I know I want to strengthen my legs, but I don't want to assume that I have the energy of a youngster and can endure the pain. Because when you're old, and you feel pain, we sit down. We don't walk and work through the pain. We sit our asses down. Because a lot of times, if we don't, then we could injure something else. So I am almost there. So basically what I'm saying is while the weather is cooling down a little bit and I have a chance to get out, comfortably, I woke up, my car temperature says it's 68 degrees, which is very pleasant, and hopefully it won't get too hot, but ain't no telling. And so I'm going to go over here and, work out a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to try to do a minimum of 15 minutes. Then take my dogs for a little walk. And then get them back onto the house. But even if I do like a short amount of exercise on each area, that will let me know, where I feel weak. And I'm going to make a mental note on where I actually feel weak, because those are the areas that probably needs to be strengthened. This has been a long process for me, because I had to go through my cancer healing. Then I had to go through the healing of, them finally adjusting and regulating and trying to, figure out, my metabolism and the medication to accommodate my metabolism. And that's cool. That's cool. It was many years. Once you have cancer, they monitor you for years afterwards. And it's not easy because they poke and they prod you with needles. Yeah. And your finances, are affected also for years. And that's stressful because you have to see a specialist. You don't get to go see just a regular general practitioner. You have to see a specialist. And then after that, you have to see a specialist occasionally. Then you have to see a specialist endocrinologist. Yes, it's a stressful situation. And definitely our healthcare system needs to be revitalized, revamped, because, it's not a healthcare system. It's more of a sick care system, I don't know if they're spending more time trying to study you than trying to treat and cure you. Probably a little bit of both, and the imbalance goes towards, studying you, right? Because every doctor wants to become a known medic, in the doctor's journal. They all want to be able to write some fantastic report and be known to discover, in hopes of paying for their in hopes of being able to pay for whatever loans and stuff they had to take out. There's quite a few people here. So I don't know, if it's too crowded, we're not staying. We're not going to stay at all. But there's a lot of people here. So let me go see. Okay, workout at the senior center was a success. We got some sourdough bread and we got some jalapeno cheese bagels. I talked with this former nurse, and yes, we definitely had our conversation about the conspiracies. It was awesome. I went and worked out. These kind gentlemen helped me out on the machines that I wasn't familiar with. I didn't do a huge workout, just basically, tried to do an overall exercise. They had a bingo game going on for the seniors, and the winner got some sweet treats. It's like, oh. So yeah, I feel really good about, coming up here. The lady that I met, her name is Wilma. And she said, so that I will remember, it's kind of like Fred Flintstone's wife's name. And I was like, oh, okay. So, yeah. Then I took the doggies for a walk, which was beautiful. So, we all get to start our day out right. I did eat a little bit of bread yesterday. I had like cut this roll in half, and so then I cut like a fourth of the chicken breast, and I ate a chicken sandwich, and then the rest I made into a chicken salad yesterday. So yeah, you know, I don't know what it is about carbs, but carbs has a way of making us feel pretty good and satisfied. You know, I got a good day's sleep yesterday. Oh yeah, I slept off and on throughout the day. So that's one of the things that, you know, I want to be able to handle through adjustment. And that is, you know, when typically, you know, you're not doing much all day long, you know, you're dozing in and out of sleep, and, you know, and just like, I ain't got nothing to do, you know, especially if you're used to being like me, you know, who is used to doing things, right? Used to being at work all the time, you know. If I ain't at work, I'm on my way to work. But you know, this whole you know, putting me out to pastures is a lot better than putting me out to the slaughterhouse, for sure. So yeah, they open up at 8 o'clock, you know, and it's now 9:30. We got there probably about 8:20. I talked with Wilma for about 10 minutes, you know, and I'm like, you know, I hadn't really factored her in, you know, the equation. I thought I was just gonna go inside, work out on the weights, take the dogs for a walk, right? But the talk was very informative. She was very knowledgeable. She is a retired nurse, you know, and she was telling me that she only got hospitalization on her Medicare, and I was like, note to self, you know, only get the hospitalization, don't get the medical, because she says, you know, paying for the insurance and also paying high copay, she was letting me know it's just not worth it. It's like, okay, note to self, you know. So yeah, I did enjoy working out. I feel, if nothing else, I feel a lot looser, right? I feel looser. What it is. So I guess I got 2 more days before October, right? Today and tomorrow. Then we're into October. So yeah. I need to do this at least, like, if not every day, then at least 3 times a week. If not 2 times. You know, at some point, I'm just going to have to realize, you know, that in order to stay fit, you know, I'm going to have to work my muscles out. I mean, it would be nice not to have to work your muscles out. But I mean, there were really old people in there, you know, trying to work out their muscles. And I felt so good to see them, you know, stating that, you know, yeah, we gonna do this for life. We gonna do this for life. So, and it's so weird how, you know, when you work out, you know, you feel like you accomplished something already. Especially if you work out first thing in the morning, which is what I did today. Because I've been awake since about 5 o'clock. And of course I did my lightweight exercises. But like I was saying, the lightweight exercises are great, you know, but at some point, you know, you want to challenge yourself with heavier exercises. And since today was my first day, you know, going in there to even do heavy exercises, I did, you know, I started out, you know, small, right? Like 30 pounds, 45 pounds. One exercise I did 100 pounds. And then I also did this automatic stair climber for about 4 minutes. And since I did it really slow, you know, I spent some time, you know, just elevating my knees, which is great. You know, it's not always about speed. When you're my age, it's about endurance. Okay? It's about that endurance. And that's what a lot of us are headed towards, trying to endure life. Endure the life. The rest of the life that we have left. So yeah, feel pretty good about that. The lady was telling me, hey, you know, she said she was hyperthyroid, and I told her I was hypothyroid, and she was skinny as a rail. But at the same time, I don't understand how you skinny as a rail and you worried about your weight. And she probably is thinking about me. How am I hypothyroid and I'm not worried about my weight? You know, she was talking about how the meat ain't good for you, that the only meat that's really good for you is turkey meat. Everything else, you know, it's not worth the risk of, you know, what kind of damage it can, you know, give you in side effects. I was like, yeah. And I do prefer turkey meat, and I plan on, you know, buying some turkeys, especially now as the holidays are getting ready to come up, because the holidays are usually when, you know, they harvest the turkey, you know, because we often use turkey meat, you know, during Thanksgiving and on through Christmas. So hopefully we'll be able to get turkey meat at a reasonable price so we can stay healthy. And true enough, in my opinion, turkey meat has the least amount of fat, the highest potential for protein. Yeah. And like I said, you know, I think turkey meat is probably the best. But turkey meat has a slight foul taste to it once you start eating it long enough. You know, it's like, okay, this foul taste, it was great when I was craving the protein. But then after a while, you try to figure out ways to, to hide how it tastes and change the flavor. And that's the difference between turkey meat and chicken meat, right? Now, chicken meat, you can season it enough to change the whole taste of the meat. And some pig meat also, you can do that. But turkey meat, it's a lot harder. I don't know what you have to do to drown the taste of turkey meat. But once I find it, I will let y'all know. So that's that. I feel good. Dogs feel good. And hopefully they can get back to the house and not, be hyper. Yeah. Who knows? If I keep getting strong, I might feel strong enough to clean out my garage.